AskReddit by Silent Zebra. People who saw someone get fired on day one of a new job, what did that person do to get fired? He kind of fired himself. Hired as the president of a live entertainment company. The owner threw a big welcome meeting in the enormous lobby. Breakfast served and the whole 9 yards. Literally $1 million salary easy. Dude never showed. Was a running joke for years. This is fucking hilarious. Did you ever find out why? School bus driver. First day on job after a month of training, she was seen talking on her cell phone while driving a bus full of kids. But I do it all the time when I'm driving my car. Oh, probably. Dude interviewed well, showed up on his first Monday at the office, drunk as fuck. Slurring, stumbling, trying to use the coffee machine and just spewing coffee all over the floor. Security walked him out within the first hour. That's really sad. The guy clearly has a drinking problem. Boss hired a temp. In the first 20 minutes he emptied her candy jar. Like took every single piece. He then asked to take lunch at 10 AM and she told him not to come back. I have a patient that does this. He is my favorite though, so I let it slide. Showed up in pajamas and when walked to the circulation desk, wrinkled her nose and said she thought she wouldn't have to actually talk to people. The position was titled Circulation and Customer Service. Not quite on topic, but reminds me of my instructor in massage therapy school telling us about a student who dropped out once they got to the hands-on part of the program because they didn't realize they'd actually have to touch people. New guy was hired as a courier driver. Came in for his first day, and was handed some paperwork to deliver to the nearest city about 20 minutes away. He says, I don't drive in the city. That was literally the job, so he was quickly dismissed. I will only deliver to suburban homes and farmhouses. Not day 1 but like day 3. He tried to hack the company computers and get customers' information. Refused to wear proper PPE. The supervisor told him to put it on. He flat out said no, so they fired him. Didn't even make it to first coffee break. If a guy's that adamant about safety gear on his first day, it isn't a good sign. Dirt worker, here. We just had a guy start about a month ago, right in the middle of rain season. We hooked him up with some great rain gear but he still refused to get out of the truck and work in the downpour. Well, that's the job, bud. You live in the PNW and we work outside. Owner came, picked him up and fired him. Guy came back from lunch high out of his mind and then we found his Instagram video shouting out the company and tagging us while he was smoking out of 3 different devices in his car at the gas station a block away within minutes because it popped up in our social media manager's feed. What 3 devices? Nicotine vape, cannabis vape and DMT? Haha. Trained a guy at a large liquor store. I was a department manager. Nice guy, worked hard, seemed engaged. Sent him home a little early since he was training. Tried to sneak out a handle of vodka on his way out the door. Got stopped by security. My only reaction was really, dude? Yeah, you gotta wait at least a month before you start stealing. Preferably after they have hired enough people to muddy the waters. Boss hired a new woman for help around the office. Her first day she showed up on time and jumped right into helping out. Seemed like a good hire at first, then the police showed up and arrested her for putting her 2-year-old in a home-built cage at home that morning and left the kid alone because she didn't want to pay for daycare. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. About the daycare thing, apparently that incident wasn't the first time she had done it. I'm sure she couldn't afford daycare, but don't lock your kid up in a cage and leave. Not related to my previous post, but similar, and this happened not too far from where my post took place. https://www.cbsnews.com/colorado/news /2-arrested-in-cage-boy-investigation / That's so depressing. He got put on inventory unloading with me and we were getting all sorts of musical equipment in. He started taking all of the drumsticks that we were getting in and sharpening points on them with his knife and then trying to see if he could get one to stick into the wall. It was one of those giant pole barn type warehouses with some sort of plastic lined paper insulation. Eventually someone saw him and walked him out. That's just fucking weird lol. We were in a rut and desperately needed people, so my boss told me to lower my standards. Commercial driving job and I had disqualified like 4 candidates, all warranted emo. I said fine, I'll try, and he sends me a student from our driving school. First 3 days a classroom, last 2 days are for driving. This man shows up. Late. No uniform. We bought him one. I ask him where his uniform is. Left it at home. I say okay, you can have someone bring it on lunch. Let me see your driver's license. He says he also left that at home. I say how do you show up to be a driver on your first day, late, without your uniform and license? He says sorry, he overslept. I fired him on the spot. He cussed me out and walked away. My boss started to scold me until I told him what happened. He stopped lol. Bro was a full-time four-wheeler. Archaeologist working on the Longhouse site with human remains uncovered and First Nations liaisons present. New girl with no field experience somehow thought she was second in command on site and an osteology expert. Started telling everyone that if they found bones to bring them to her. Someone found raccoon bones and she started saying they were actually human fetal bones and that First Nations used to bury babies inside the walls of their longhouses. She was removed from site before lunch. Holy crap. The audacity. Okay, not the first day, but we had a new hire porn his company issued laptop on his first weekend. He came in after the weekend, said he left his laptop at home and asked for another one. He was told, that's not how it works and to go home to get the computer. Then he went out into the parking lot, broke one of his windows, and came right back in saying the laptop was stolen out of his car. Like dude, your car was parked literally directly in front of the manager's office window. He tried to get me to back up his story which A, I didn't even know the guy, but also B, the person you want me to lie to watched you break your own window. Turned up to work drunk. Apparently his dad came round before work to celebrate him getting a job, clearly a great role model. I kind of feel sorry for this guy. Not a ton, but some. New hire's first day as an usher at a movie theater. I was training them and he just vanished. Showed again a few hours later. Turns out he went and watched a whole movie, from beginning to end. We were slow and you said there wasn't much more to train on, and you said we can watch stuff on shift was the excuse. He severely misunderstood my when it's slow, you have some free time comments. Like man, there's more to cover and we don't just watch a whole movie. If there isn't much to do and the right folks are on shift, you can watch a few minutes here and there. As an usher, it's assumed if you're not seen, you're off doing your job somewhere, and we're on radio if needed. My absolute favorite part of usher was watching bad movies in bits and pieces, totally out of sequence. Except for one New Year's Day where we watched the second half of some more full Chinese action flick and then the first half on the next showing. Good times. In Dallas, I saw a new bartender get fired within an hour of starting training. A group of guys paid their tab in cash. She said, these men are from Spain, they don't tip, then pocketed $5 before giving them their change. She was asked to leave and not come back. I was working in production at a local TV station, and a new guy told the morning show meteorologist that his wife thought about him when they had sex. The guy was only there like 2 hours before that happened, and he was immediately shown the door. I hope she made him get the job there just to proposition the meteorologist. He sexually harassed a female colleague who stepped into the HR office immediately. It was on camera, too. He didn't even get to unpack his brand new laptop when he was escorted out. What did he say? New driver at a trucking company backed a trailer into the terminal manager's new Mercedes on his first and last day. Also, after delivering his last load for the day but before returning to the yard, a trainee stopped at a truck stop, came out with a case of beer, and tried to get back into the truck with said beer. It's a violation of federal regulations to have alcohol in a commercial vehicle, unless it is the cargo being transported as part of a manifested shipment, so the trainer reported it to management and he was fired on the spot. Guy was hired contingent on background credit check. On day 3 I got a call from HR saying he wasn't eligible. The store manager who hired him made me fire him. Took him in the office and said, "Your checks came back negative and yeah, can't work here." He started going on about his record had been sealed and the forgery and theft convictions were supposed to be expunged. And then I said, "No man, you got bad credit." Fast forward 3 months. The company dropped the credit check requirement, so the store manager hired him again. 3 weeks later they caught him stealing computers. That's a case of the farmer and the viper if I ever saw one. Questionable policy that has definitely fucked over some people who had bad breaks got rescinded. Dude who got fucked over by it gets a second chance, and then proceeds to do the exact kind of shit that probably birthed that policy to begin with. Worked at a takeout counter, was training the new guy. Constantly spilled food on his hands and fingers when filling up containers. Decided the best way to clean it off was with his mouth and tongue, in front of customers. I gasped out loud. Technically it was the second day. I work in a steel foundry and my boss hired a guy last year. First day is orientation and I let this guy and another that was in orientation to leave early to go to Red Wing and pick up some required and company paid for boots. The guy shows up the next day wearing sneakers. Says he fell asleep and didn't make it to Red Wing. My boss tells him he can't be out in the plant in sneakers. This is 7 AM so my boss tells him to go home and when Red Wing opens at 8:30 get some boots and come back. About noon he isn't back yet and isn't answering his phone. Boss calls Red Wing and they say he hasn't been there. Boss tells them not give him boots if he shows up. An hour later he calls my boss saying Red Wing wouldn't give him any boots. When my boss asked him why he didn't go at 8:30 like he was told, he gave the same "I fell asleep" excuse. He was crying about free Red Wings. I'd be too excited to sleep. Pretended he didn't have 2 hit and run accidents in the employee parking lot by claiming he didn't even own a car. He called a friend and planned to sneak his car keys out to the friend so it could be driven down the street for him to get to later. He apparently aroused suspicion that he was up to something when he asked a few of his new co-workers if there was an exit to the building that couldn't be observed from the security desk. Someone hid my friend's brand new Lexus in the parking lot of her giant finance company. Not one to be deterred, she searched the entire lot on her lunch break until she found the culprit with the matching paint marks on his car. Then, she stalked the windows for the next week at lunch and quitting time until she saw the guy who owned the car walking out. He was in her division. She just walked up to him and said, "Hi. You hit my car. I take cash or Venmo." He sighed and paid up.